Thank you, Dr. Bond. Now I wish to call to the podium Dean Robinson, who will introduce our commencement speaker.
Dr. Robert S Puglisi is Director of Innovation Design at Thomas Jefferson University and Jefferson Health, where he co-founded the Health Design Lab, a creative space built with the purpose of merging together design studio ethos with science-oriented discipline to foster innovation in healthcare. As somebody who enjoys empowering future healthcare providers to be change makers, Robert leads programs that train students to be health design thinkers and innovators. With the Doctor of Pharmacy from Northeastern University, Boston, cum laude, Rob spent over 10 years practicing and teaching in emergency medicine. He believes that including both the patient and the provider's voice is vital to the healthcare design, and he brings each of these perspectives to his work through his own experience as a clinician and is through his own journey coping with insulin-dependent diabetes. A national leader in pharmacy, Rob received the Prescott Award in 2018 by the Pharmacy Leadership and Education Institute, and he is chair of the ASHP Section Advisory Group on Emergency Care. He has presented on the intersection of health and design at national venues such as South by Southwest and Stanford Medicine X. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Robert Puglisi.
Thank you, Dean Robinson. That was a very nice introduction. It's dark out there, but you guys are a really amazing looking graduating class. Give yourselves a round of applause. Come on. And it's such a beautiful, historic building. We're all lucky to be here. All right. Well, I want to start by saying thank you to a group of amazing people who worked hard, stayed up late, and put in incredible effort to get to this proud day. Of course, I'm talking about the parents of the graduates. Good job. Thank you to the trustees, deans, faculty, esteemed guests, and yes, the graduates. It's an incredible honor to be celebrating with you today here in Western University. I received my doctorate of pharmacy from Northeastern University in 2008, and during my time there, I had the pleasure of being mentored by your current dean of the College of Pharmacy, Dan Robinson. And it wasn't that long ago that I was in your position, practically floating out of my chair in anticipation, thinking about all the things that occurred in my life to get me to that day. But success doesn't come without sacrifice. So as you sit there waiting for the other 212 people to get their diplomas, make sure you sit there and you think about all the hard work and sacrifice that you and those around you have made to get you to where you are. Be proud that you have accomplished what others have only dreamed of, and you have made it. In my experience, defining moments occur in the most unexpected ways. Looking back, the one unique thing that I can say was critical to my success was making the most out of unexpected opportunities. And in retrospect, it's amazing how small, seemingly inconsequential things can be formative. So I'll start with a story. In pharmacy school, I joined an a cappella group. I wanted to take it up as a creative outlet and essentially a distraction from studying. And it was here that I connected with a fellow student who was from Philadelphia, and we became great friends. A year later, just before starting clinical rotations, I heard about a recruitment event at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. It's also called CHOP. And initially I blew it off because working in pediatrics was terrifying. But my friend convinced me to go and take the trip for two important and profound reasons. One, it was free, and two, we could get Philly cheesesteaks. As part of the recruitment fair, I had the option to interview, so I took it basically just to get practice. And visiting the hospital didn't change my mind about working with kids either. That was still terrifying. But during a tour of the hospital, they took us to the emergency department and said they wanted to put a pharmacist there. I immediately perked up because for some reason working with kids is terrifying, but working with kids in an emergency department was exciting. Later that day, during my interview, the assistant director asked me if I would be interested in a job with them, to which I boldly replied, no, unless you want me to work in the ER, and then I'll be here in a second. They sort of laughed, thanked me, and I left, having had my cheesesteak, and forgot all about it. Months later, with no job prospects whatsoever, having failed at securing a fellowship, backed out of a potential opportunity with the armed forces, and just a month or two to graduation, I got a call from the director of pharmacy at CHOP offering me that job in the ER. Later, I would ask him why he would hire somebody so green to do a job that difficult in the best pediatric hospital in the world. Weren't people lining up for the opportunity? He told me that all of the established pharmacists were afraid to work in the ER, and I was the only one who had said unabashedly that I would do the job. So started my career in emergency medicine and my path that led me to where I am today. And that would be a cool story unto itself, but shortly after starting my new job, I learned that another newly graduated pharmacist was hired to start the pharmacy alongside me. And when we first met, I kind of saw her as my competition. Obviously, I wasn't going to let this other new kid outshine me. We've now been married for 7 years, have 2 little girls, and a third one on the way. Thanks. And if you trace it back, my entire career in life as a husband and father happened because I wanted to sing, and I liked the idea of getting a real cheesesteak in Philly. But seriously, you never know where opportunity will arise, and simply being open to doing something new could change your life. A month into my exciting new job at CHOP, things took a turn for the worst. I began having some concerning symptoms and essentially diagnosed myself with diabetes using the same glucometer I was given in pharmacy school to train on. I knew my life would never be the same. And honestly, the idea that I would have to start limiting pasta and bread as an Italian was more distressing than injections. But an unexpected consequence of my diagnosis was that it gave me perspective on how difficult it is to be a good patient, even with all of my medical training. It totally changed how I provided care for my patients and was a major driver that led me to explore design and innovation. A design lesson that we frequently teach is this concept of the reframe, which is to push yourself to see things from a new perspective. My diabetes diagnosis allowed me to better understand the patient experience and has made me a better healthcare provider. If you master your ability to reframe, you'll be surprised how you can turn your supposed weaknesses into strengths, leveraging every part of you to make yourself and those around you better. Now, I cannot overstate the importance of finding good mentors. Dr. Dan Robinson was one of the first people who defined that role for me. Dan is always thinking differently, imagining what can be done better, and challenging those around them to see beyond the walls that we often enclose ourselves in. Back then, he encouraged me to think differently about what it means to be a pharmacist, and he sparked this entrepreneurial spirit that has stayed with me all these years. This mindset has propelled my career in some pretty interesting and unexpected directions, from being the emergency department pharmacist to now being a co-founder of the Health Design Lab and Director of Innovation Design at Thomas Jefferson University and Jefferson Health. As the largest provider of healthcare in the city of Philadelphia, we are challenging the status quo by thinking differently and acting like a 200-year-old institution that acts like a startup. With this energy and in my role, I get to work with patients, providers, faculty, and students to encourage creativity and create a space where anyone can turn their ideas into a reality. A big part of my job is acting as an evangelist for design and inclusivity in healthcare. I do this by teaching those who work in our industry to think more like designers. So why should you want to think like anything other than a pharmacist, a dentist, or a scientist? For a moment, recall your personal experiences with healthcare. You've likely had a negative experience, or at minimum, an unpleasant one. Now, imagine you could make that experience better. Perhaps you would try to decrease waiting room time. Could you eliminate the waiting room altogether? To think like a designer helps you to become a better creative problem solver, seeing problems we are surrounded by not as impediments, but as opportunities to design a better future. You have the ability to imagine what could be better, and now you have the power to do something about it. As I progress in my career, I find myself drawing upon skills I've learned in the past that have nothing to do with healthcare. Using the multitasking skills I learned when I managed a restaurant, or the attention to detail I first honed working in my uncle's carpentry shop. Many of you have come from non-traditional or creative backgrounds. Perhaps this is your second or even third career. As you start this next chapter, do not forget those other parts that make up you. Use the diversity of your lived experience, good or bad, as your superpower. If you're an artist, stand up and be the first one in a meeting to draw an idea. If you're an athlete, be a coach for those around you. If you come from humble origins and got here despite the odds stacked against you, tell your story so that others may do the same. Now, I've never had a job that someone else held before me. With each new role, I would simply have to dive in and figure it out. Many are frightened by this prospect of doing something no one has ever done before. And it's in this space where you can thrive. Embracing the mindset of a designer, we teach others in healthcare to be comfortable with ambiguity and to not fear failure. Now, I'm well aware that we're trained to be experts, to have all the answers. And there's no one more squeamish at the thought of not having all the answers than a bunch of type A health science grads. But today, in today's fast-moving and technologically charged world, it is not our ability to regurgitate facts that will keep us relevant. It's our ability to create meaning and value for people in a complex system. I believe that making people healthier is a creative endeavor, and we need more creativity in healthcare if we are to keep moving forward. So do not fear the unknown. Instead, see it as opportunity, as a space where you can go and create something. Imagine if architects feared the potential of a vacant lot. There would be no skyscrapers. Look for the empty spaces where no one resides, and in that space, build your skyscraper. As newly minted graduates of pharmacy, dentistry, and pharmaceutical science, you will be asked to solve some of humanity's greatest challenges. The task before you may seem tough, but you have prepared. And we are in this together. So remember, leverage your talents, embrace ambiguity, learn from your failures, and seize opportunity. Join me, and together, we will design the future of healthcare. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Puglisi. Now we get to the really fun part. Would anyone care for a diploma? We will start with the College of Pharmacy.
Will the candidates for the degree of Master of Science in Pharmaceutical Sciences please rise and stand in place? Mr. President, the assembled candidates have met the requirements for graduation and have been recommended by the faculty for the degree Master of Science in Pharmaceutical